So hopefully we've gone live, and we'll give it a minute or two for people to connect. If you do show up, just pop your name in the side so I can see who we have. And like usual, any questions at all, just pop them in the side for me to take a look at as well. Gonna be quite a quick one, so if you have got any questions, make sure you get them in. It is going to be a really quick one, just because it's like 30 degrees in this room. It's really, really warm. So just let me know who we've got in the sides, and we'll get going relatively quickly. Give it another 30 seconds and then we'll start talking about what we wanted to talk about. Hi, Ben. So 10 seconds. Let me just grab my book here, because we will be talking a little bit about some of the stuff in here. Just find the right page. There we go. So we'll get going. So today I wanted to talk about building creativity within one pattern. So we're going to today use Coca-Cola for an example, which you've all looked at now, which is right, left, right, left. We've all looked at using Coca-Cola in our playing, and mainly in fills with our grouping of 4. But we should all be quite comfortable with that now and should be able to put it into our playing really, really easily. So now is the time that we want to start looking at how we can be more creative with it in general. So I'm going to move the camera slightly because we're going to need the kit soon. So just pop that there. Yep. So hi, Faye in the side. So what we're going to be talking about is, if you do have the grade book, page 80 is very, very similar to what we're going to be looking at today. But if you don't have the grade book, not a problem, because I've got a little written out sheet here, which is what I'm going to be working from, which is something I wrote out just before the stream. It's a little bit wonky on the screen, but I'll be talking through that in a second. So with our Coca-Colas, we know a grouping of 4, right, left. And what we want to be looking at is how we can put these onto our drums, or how we can change them ever so slightly to create different patterns and sound more creative, and just allow us to play different fills. So we're not just stuck. We could be playing the same pattern, so like Coca-Cola coffee, for example, but we could make 1,000 different fills that sounds totally different just from that one pattern. So what I have, which I just wrote out there for you, is this is all of the different combinations that you can have for Coca-Cola. So within 4 hits, you can actually make 16 different combinations out of 4 hits. So, for example, we've got the top line here, and the way that is if you see the note at the bottom, that means we're going to accent that hit, or we're going to move it to a tom or a symbol or something like that. So let's take the first 4 of those for example. So number 1 was that we accent or move the very first right hand. So it would be Coca-Cola. So moving that first right hand. Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. So we've got moving the first right hand. Number 2 on that page was moving the second hit, so it would be the first left hand. So Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And then we've got moving the third hit, so the second right hand. Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And then we've got moving the fourth hit, second left hand. Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And we've we've got those 4 different combinations just by moving one of the hits. But we can move 2 hits, we could move 3 hits, we could move all of the hits, or we could move none of the hits, and that's how we get to 16 different combinations, which is those ones there. So in our book, let me take a look. Was it page 80? It wasn't page 80. We wanted to be on page 88. So page 88 is very, very similar to what I have written out. Just it's got all 4 Coca-Colas to a bar as opposed to just the one Coca-Cola. But working through page 80 from our grade book is going to be very, very similar to working through this exercise here that we're going to be talking about. But this one allows us to create a couple more interesting patterns. So let's start off. So those 4 that I just talked about, so I'm moving the first hit, then the second, and the third, then the fourth. With that, just those 4 bars there, it's a really, really good exercise for helping us develop those Coca-Colas. Because if we played one after another, we'd have Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And the hit that we moves an extra space every time. So for example, if we were to move that onto the kit, I'll put that down there. We could move it onto the toms, for example. Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And we'd have that exercise. And that could be used as a fill on its own. And we would be able to play that. So what else we could do is we could move it to a cymbal, for example, and put a bass drum with it. So each one of those hands that moves gets moved to one of our cymbals, and we put a bass drum with it. So that's another example of what we can do just with those first 4 ideas. So now what I'm going to do is show you once again. So we've got that one. That was the first 4 ideas. So moving on to number 5 is where we move the first 2 hits of a Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola. I'll just spin that around so I can definitely hit the top. So the first 2 hits, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. And we could do that moving it to the toms, so Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, for example. Or we could do it the other way around so that we went Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, and move the second 2 hits. But we've got number 5 is those 2, so moving the first 2 hits. Number 6 is what I just said, which was moving the second 2 hits instead. Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. And we've got number 7, which is moving the first and the last one. So Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And then number 8 is moving all of the right hands. Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. And then number 9 would be moving all of the left hands. Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. And then we're on to moving 3 hits. So let's look at the first 3. You've been practicing on your drum kit. Brilliant. That's what we like to hear. So number 11 was the first 3 hits. So Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. Number 12 is the last 3. So Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. And then we've got 13, which is the first, third, and fourth. Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. And then we've got 14, which is the first 2 and the last one. Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. And then 15 is all of them. And then 16 is none of them. So there we've got 16 different combinations of moving 1 hand, 2 hands, 3 hands, 4 hands, or none of them at all, onto different parts of the kit. And we can do that just on the practice pad, like I just did, moving them to the top. Or we could move it onto the kit where we move them onto toms, onto cymbals, for example, and create different patterns that way. Now that we've got this here, we want to be practicing each one of those individually, and we also want to be able to mix them up. So creating fills, so sometimes we might get to a point where we're not quite sure what fill we want to put in. we've hit a little bit of a creative wall and we can't think of a new fill at all. So I'm going to use these 16 ideas here. So I've got those written out there. I'm going to pop those there. And what I'm going to do is bring up random number generator on Google, which I've brought up on my phone. We've got 16 different ideas here. So if I set the max number to 16 and the minimum number to 1, I'm going to press go. And that gives me number 13. So number 13 is the first, third, and fourth hit. So 1, 2, 4, and we can write that one out. Just like that. So that would be number 13 there. And then generate another number, once number 7. So number 7 is the first and the fourth. So we've got the first and the fourth. So that adds number 7 to there, first and the fourth. Generate another number, number 4. So we've got just the last one. And then one more, number 13 again, which is the first, third, and fourth. So if I show you that there, we've got that pattern now, which we've just created using a random number generator and our little key. So I'm going to play that one for you on the practice pad first. I'm going to have to have it beside me because I haven't learned it, obviously. So we would have Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. We'd have that pattern now, which we could move to the drum kit. So we put the pad back down there. I'm going to have that on my floor tom. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move it to the toms in whatever hand it lands on. So if that hand is the right hand, it's going to go to the floor tom. And if it goes onto the left hand, it's onto my tom there. So that pattern would be Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And if we practice that faster, and we could use that as a fill. Or we could move it to the cymbals like we were saying earlier. And we'd be able to use that as a fill as well. And we created that just using a little key. So 16 different combinations, so moving one hand, two hands, or three hands. And we created that fill at the bottom there, which we can put onto toms, we can put onto cymbals, or we can experiment with, say we want all of those accented notes to just be on one drum and the rest to be on the other drum. We can play around with it that way. I'm going to do one more example. I'm going to bring the number generator up again. I'm going to generate another number. It's going to be number 4. So number 4 is just the last hit. Generate again. Number 12. Number 12 is everything but the first hit. Another number, we've got 13. So that is the first, third, and fourth. And finally, we've got number 3. So that is the third hit. So I'll show you that one now as well. We've got that one at the bottom, and we've just managed to generate that, which is a totally different fill to the first one. We can put that down over there. And if I was to play it on the pad, we'd have Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And that's the pattern that we would move our hands in. So again, over onto our kits. I might as well leave that in front of me, so I can change the sound at all. And I'm just going to move all of those hits that we just saw onto the toms. So Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. That was all of those hits just moved onto the toms. So as a fill, we've got all of those different patterns. I've just made that new fill there. And we can do the same thing where we put it onto the symbols. So it would be Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And we would have that fill there. So what we want to be doing, if we do have the grey books, I can show you it as an example in the grey book. So the first few exercises on page 88. The first few exercises on page 88 are very, very similar. And then moving across the pages, it gives you plenty of different ideas of where we can move those hands. So if you do have the grey book, which I recommend all of you having, then you can dive into those pages. It starts on page, I'll find the page, starts on page 88 and carries on all the way through to page 97. So from 88 to 97, we could be running through all of those different exercises and create different fills for ourselves that would fit perfectly within any groove, because all we're using is Coca-Colas. So that little sheet that I showed at the start, if anybody does want a copy of that, let me know and I can make sure that we can get that to you. And then you can just use a number generator. I just searched random number generator on Google and that's what came up. And you just put in your minimum and maximum number and press generate and it'll give you a random number. And you'll be able to create an endless amount of fills without even really having to think about them, because we've got our 16 different patterns. And now a number generator is putting them in a different order for us every single time. So hopefully that is something that you can all be working on within your playing as a little side thing to our actual lessons. If anybody's got any questions at all, if you have a copy, please, of course you can. I'll get that sent over to you. That's not a problem. So I'll get that sent over to you, Ben. Anyone else that wants it, anybody who hasn't caught the live stream but is watching it later on, just send an email across or a message across and we can get a copy to you, because they'll be really, really helpful for creating fills. Like I said, put them onto toms, put them onto symbols and experiment with them. Maybe you want to practice it so that you're only playing that first hit. So, for example, you could be counting Coca-Colas out loud. So let's use the first 4 for an example. We'd be counting Coca-Colas out loud, but we're only playing the accented ones. So Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And that's a great exercise for making sure that we are keeping in time with ourselves and making sure that we know exactly where each beat's meant to land, because we've got a big gap between beats there. And when you get further on with the exercise, so 5, 6, 7, and 8, for example, Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And it's different patterns that we can put on the kit. Even though those might seem really simple, they might perfectly fit an idea or a sound that you want in your head. So anyone else that wants that, let me know and I'll send that across to you. That'd be a great exercise to be working on, as well as your lesson content. So if anybody else has any questions at all, pop them in the side and I can get those answered for you. What you can be expecting to hear from us over the next couple of weeks is we are looking at continuing lessons across the summer break. So some of you may have been contacted already, some of you may not. We are looking at running lessons across the summer break. They won't be the same as what we have been covering. It'll be a little bit of a break from all of the kind of knowledge and intake of new information. And it'll be a little bit more of the enjoyable side of things. So it'll be learning songs. I've kind of had the idea of doing like a little rock band one where we can team you up with some of the guitar players, vocalists, bass players, keys players, and we can put little virtual bands together, because even though you can't get together with anyone else at the moment due to all the social distancing, it doesn't mean that we can't get you together with other students online and put you into little groups and get you playing songs together. So you should be contacted across the next couple of weeks about whether that's something that you're interested in. hopefully it is. I'm looking forward to teaching you all a lot of new songs and kind of stepping away from the grade syllabus just for the summer break. Of course, if people did want to just carry on as usual and carry on with the grade syllabus, then more than happy to carry on teaching that. But it's just a little fun thing to be getting on with over summer for those interested. So expect to be contacted about that. Any more questions at all, just let me know in email or save them for next week. There will be another YouTube live next week. But I'm going to end it here because it doesn't look like we have any more questions. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys, and enjoy. Thank you very much.